right, well, welcome everyone. It is an honor to moderate the panel today. My name is Pedro David Espinoza, originally made in Peru, but based in Silicon Valley in California. And thank you so much, Manuela, Tanya, and Abby for being here. Welcome you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And today at the Latinas in Tech Summit 2022, the panel is Reshaping the Tech Industry. We're beyond excited, and we're going to start with the first question. Question number one is, please introduce yourself and tell us about what you're doing right now. Perhaps Manuela Veloso, could you kick us off?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, and it's a pleasure to be here. I am currently at JP Morgan Chase, this financial institution, and I had an AI research group at JP Morgan. Previously, I was at Carnegie Mellon University as a faculty for 30 years. And then in 2018, I moved from the academic world to the corporate world, though I'm still emerita at Carnegie Mellon. And our focus at JP Morgan is about bringing AI kind of thinking, AI solutions to the financial industry, innovation, transformation, and efficiency, and all sorts of like data processing to the firm. So AI in finance now, AI in robotics, in planning, in learning, machine learning, all throughout my life. So here I am.
Thank you. Thank you, Manuela. Super inspiring. Happy customer of Chase, JP Morgan as well. And I hope Portugal beats Serbia in a few weeks so Ronaldo can go to the World Cup.
Oh, I did not know about that. Sorry for that.
You're good. You're good. Let's go with Abby Franco. Could you tell us more about yourself and what projects you're doing today?
Sure. Thank you for having me. So I'm Abigail Franco, Senior Director of Digital Innovation at T-Mobile, and I lead a team of product managers, software developers, architects who take moonshots from concept to reality. So I'm very thankful to have the opportunity to work on emerging technology. So sort of the latest things that are coming up in the industry that may have a tangential side to something that we can do or use to leverage our services at T-Mobile. Those are the things that my team is working on.
Very, very exciting. And thank you for sharing, Abigail. Last but not least, Tanya, please share what you're doing and tell us more about yourself and your bio.
Thank you for having me. So I'm a director of research at Google, and I've been at Google for over 16 years. Prior to that, I was at NASA Ames Research Center, and I worked on the Mars rovers, which is the poster you see behind me. I also worked on planning and scheduling, near Manuela Veloso's expertise. But more recently, I'm doing natural language understanding and vision. So at the intersection of vision and natural language understanding, working on these very famous foundation models, which is how do we do machine learning at real scale, at really, really interesting scales. And in order to power, better dialogue systems, in order to power better search systems, et cetera. And yeah, that's what I do.
Thank you, Tanya. Super inspiring. And to be honest, I'm very honored and flattered to be here surrounded by powerful PhDs and engineers and technologists. My mother is an engineer as well. She used to code in PHP back in the good old days. But let's continue with the questions, dear friends. Number two, what are the opportunities that you see in your field? What are the challenges, the potential success metrics? What do you see in the future in your field? Abby Franco.
Sure. So at T-Mobile, our main services are focused on the wireless industry. And so as most of you may know, 5G is something that is the future, but it's here now. And it gives us the ability to look at so many different ways that we can use technology for good. And so when I think of opportunities for Latinos in this industry, I mean, the opportunities are really endless. One of the things that I think we have the opportunity to think about is how do we take those things that are unique to our culture, depending on where we're from, right? Because the cultures are different, but I think that there's a lot of opportunities for us to think about how we can use technology to, for example, in one space could be like education. There's a lot of inequities when it comes to providing educational services. And one of the things that we've done here at T-Mobile is to look at how can we provide wireless services and internet services so that we can make that available to areas where maybe that's not something that students who need to, for example, study from home have access to. So how can we find opportunities to provide services that will help all of those who need it the most to get the education that they deserve?
Without a doubt, 5G is the future, and that's super key, not only for IT, but education, so many other different verticals today. So Abigail, thank you for sharing. Let's continue with Tanya. What are some opportunities that you see in your field today?
I mean, I see tremendous opportunities in a whole wide range of things. So a lot of what we interact with today is we interact with language, right? So I'm speaking to you today, we're using language to communicate with each other, right? When we're using chat and messaging and all these other apps, we're communicating with those that we care about through language. And when we read news and we try to understand what's happening today in the world, we do that also through reading, through language. Now, part of Google's mission is to make all the information available to everyone in the world. And that includes anyone, no matter where they are, as Abigail mentioned, right? They could be in a remote area, and it's important for them to gain information, but also get it in their language in a way that they understand it the best and that the message goes through. And so in terms of opportunities, I think we do have wonderful products like Google Translate, but we have so much more to do, right? So maybe if you're in a town in Peru, maybe if you're in a town in Mexico or in Chile or wherever it is that you are, you might get a translation that it kind of feels right, but not quite right. We need your help to make it better, for example, right? We need your help to generate high quality content for everyone in your language and about the topics that matter to you. So lots of opportunities there still to spread information and help users find the right information at the right time.
I love that answer, Tanya. And talking about little villages and pueblos, I'm the co-founder CEO of Pon Peru, which is a nonprofit that we empower women to become entrepreneurs. So I was born and raised here in Peru, and my mom were from a very small village, and we're helping these women create their own LLCs and companies. And they're making these like alpaca handmade scarves and sweaters and beanies. And so, yeah, just fun fact. But let's go with Manuela. You've been in the university sector and of course at JP Morgan Chase. What are some opportunities and challenges that you see in your field?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So I would like to raise the issue about AI being kind of it's a road map. It's not really a one shot, so it's like kind of a journey. And I think that what for me it's important to understand is how do humans, people, and these machines basically combine their expertise and overcome their limitations together. So I'm very interested on the problem of not just calling some black box XGBoost or a black box TensorFlow or a black box kind of like data processing machine learning algorithm, but to incorporate also the knowledge that people have about all sorts of like different tasks. So I want to, everybody to understand that AI, while in fact will be able to handle scale and handle content and handle all sorts of like predictions and classifications that humans will have a hard time potentially doing because of the size of the data, AI is quite limited one way or another. And the humans and the people that use AI know a lot. So I'm trying to develop more and more this concept of AI assistance rather than the AI taking over.
Very, very good point on how AI is limited to what humans and how we can program it to evolve. Now let's continue with the question number 3 about the importance of a moonshot innovation. So why do we need more Latinas in technology doing that? Why do we need more Hispanic women, Latinas creating the next moonshot innovation? Why don't we start with our very own Tanya, who shared earlier about the project in Mars and NASA. So Tanya, please lead us on.
Thank you. I can maybe try to answer that question given my own perspective. Being a Latina and Hispanic and working on moonshots of one form or another, I think what's really stood out for me, the fact that we're very creative people. We have been kind of trying to advance our careers, right? With a lot of resilience and a lot of creativity. And I think that resilience and creativity is really the essential ingredients to furthering any moonshot, regardless of the area, regardless of the nature, because moonshots are hard. They're hard to define. They're hard to get off the ground. And you're going to have to persist through a lot of setbacks along the way. So having resilience and having a clear vision and having that creativity can really help. Another aspect that I wanted to mention is I've found that a lot of Latinas are incredibly inclusive by nature. And so they can bring people together that maybe have a different perspective, and they're okay with that. They can take that different perspective and make something more out of it, which is also, by the way, an essential ingredient of a moonshot.
That is so key, Tanya, being inclusive and paying it forward, as you're saying, but also having a clear vision. And I feel like many times women and Latinas and people of color, we tend to be over-mentored, yet under-sponsored, right? So people who are actually wearing your jersey, Abigail or Manuela or Tanya, very few in the boardroom, in the hiring room, right? People who have the skin in the game. But anyway, I wrote a book called Differences That Make a Difference about this, and super passionate about diversity and inclusion in technology. Why don't we continue with Manuela Veloso? Why don't you tell us about the importance of a moonshot innovation and why we need more Latinas doing this?
So it's a good question. You know, I'm from Portugal. Sometimes I don't speak Spanish. I apologize. And so I don't know if I'm a Latina, but I'm definitely, I speak Portuguese, so I'm not an English speaking person. But I do want to tell one thing about these, the power of like being a Latina or having a different type of experience. It's that inevitably these the AI, the technology is about creating opportunities in society. So we are extremely focused on creating AI for social good, AI for actually to be trusted by people, to be explained to people. So this is like capabilities that require people to understand society at their best. I think that being like of some diverse nature, women and Latinos and all sorts of other different diversity brings a very large understanding of the needs that society has for technology. It's I'm not, I mean, it's we have to enlarge the spectrum. We cannot make it narrower and narrower, because in some sense we have to make sure our techniques are fair with respect to all aspects of society. So I believe that we can only achieve that if our teams, if the people that work with us in technology and business are as diverse as the society in which we are. So one final thought here that I always think that's important is like to share that what Pedro just mentioned, that we are supposed to be in this business not to be paternalized by other people, but to really be open to offer the novelty that we think, the brilliant ideas that come up to us, and to try to push them forward as much as possible. And both at the technical level, but also at the application level. So I was very curious. I was just going to send a chat to Pedro about this company that he mentioned, this nonprofit that he has about women entrepreneurs, because I'm very interested on understanding what's happening there. So it's without those type of like involvement, we are never going to reach all through society. So join this thinking, the technology, but also come with like disruption, with novelty, with not believing that others know more than we do, or something like that. It's very important to have that initiative and that drive, one way or another.
Manuela, thank you so much. I'm truly joyful. And of course, you're in my dictionary, you're a Latina, obrigado, você. And I love, pão de queijo, and I've never been to Portugal, but I've heard, sardinhas asadas and pastel de nata is really good, Eu gosto muito. But yeah, I agree with you. I think we need committed males to sponsor and vouch for females in the workplace. And the same thing as we need, Caucasians to sponsor Latinas at Google, at JP Morgan, at T-Mobile. So why don't we continue?
Also committed women and committed Latinos to other women and other Latinos. I mean, that's why, I'm sure that Abby and Tanya and myself are here exactly to say that we are committed to this mission of bringing more, because we have to be like, we have to push. I mean, not just, yeah.
Of course, we have to be bold. I 100% agree with you. Sometimes I feel like, Latin America, Spain, Portugal, so many different cultures that I feel like sometimes we tend to be shy when we're not supposed to be shy. And then we tend to be loud when we're not supposed to be loud. So I agree with you. So Abigail Franco, take us home. What do you?
Sure, thank you, Pedro. So first I have to say, I look forward to reading your book, and all of the food that you mentioned just made me hungry. I have to look for a Portuguese restaurant when we're done here. So back to the question about the importance of moonshots and why we need more Latinas doing that. So I'll say this: when I think of moonshots, I think of three things, right? That should be considered when we talk about a moonshot. One is something that addresses a huge problem. Second, something that proposes a radical solution and uses breakthrough technology. And when I think about Hispanics now making up the second largest consumer group in the USA, I see a huge opportunity. And when I think about innovation, and one of the first steps of innovation being empathy, listening to whoever is your customer and listening to what inspires them and what is going to create a sense of happiness for them, I see how, in order for us to create services that are going to help our world, focusing on this space is so key, right? Because who better to do that than a Latina who understands so many of the consumers, and who better than us to take advantage of that opportunity to create these moonshots and making it real to help the rest of the world. So I feel so passionate about that because, as was said earlier, we are known for being empathetic and for being inclusive. And so I think that what we bring to the table is a lot of value on our experiences and the way that we bring people together, and just seeing the opportunities that are out there for us to help others is just a great space for us right now. So I encourage everyone out there listening to go and figure out what is that moonshot that you can take on, and let's do it together.
100% with you. And we need more Latina entrepreneurs and founders and CEOs. Here in the US alone, less than 2%, I believe it's less than 1% of venture capital funding goes towards Latina entrepreneurs, right? And it's, unfortunately, we need to change that without a doubt. And I myself invest in a couple of startups. So it starts with us. Inclusion starts with I. Let's go to our next question. tell us about being such an important element in a team that is traditionally filled by white male talent. Abigail.
Sure, I would say one of the most important elements is the influence and the change that you can bring. So one of the things that I focus on is how do I bring others along with me? And how do I become the champion for others? And so I think that we can impact the future. And for me, that's what I focus on is in addition to making sure that I'm doing my job and really, creating results, right? Part of that is just doing your job, but also how can I lift others and how can I pave the way for others that are coming after me so that at some point we don't have to have conferences about women in tech. We can just be humans in tech. And again, just how do we set the example so that others don't feel like this is unique for anyone, that, anyone can be an engineer and anyone can be a professional in any space. So I really look forward to that future. And we are the ones that can make that happen now and really set that example.
Yep. 100% with you. And I think looking at the data alone, Abby, of how the US today is nearly 20% Hispanic, 20% Latin, and seeing the future, right? Our demographic keeps growing. But as you said, we need each other to vouch for one another and be bold. So then in the future, it's not a women in tech or Latinas in AI or whatever, but it's just us, right? We have these role models. I've been very thankful. I went to Berkeley and then I went to Stanford, and unfortunately, very few Latinas, right? Very few Latinos in these engineering and business school classes. So we need to change this. Well, let's continue. Tanya, what do you think? Tell us about an important element in a team that's traditionally filled by white Caucasian male talent.
I mean, I think it's the bringing in different points of view. It's not just about diverse background. It's about how do you build diverse products, or how do you build for a diverse population, or how do you, whatever it is that you do, how do you bring different points of view? I mean, I've been in rooms where I'm the only woman, I'm the only Latina for sure, hands down. But even then, I'm the only woman, and there's 18 other men around me making decisions. That's when I think to myself, wow, it's really important to me that I am here representing that diverse point of view, that diverse voice. And I see that as my main mission in those kinds of meetings. Now, that said, I've also been in meetings where we're making decisions and it's all women in the room. And I've even celebrated that. Now, to be all women and all Latinas, that's extremely hard, but at least all women, I'm celebrating. When I joined Google, I started a Chilenos at Google mailing list because I have some roots in Chile. And there were only 4 of us. Now, several years later, I said 17, 16, right? There's such a large number that I can't keep track of things anymore. So it's been an incredible journey to be at Google and see how the Latin population overall, I mean, I'm talking about Chile as a tiny country with a tiny population. I don't even know how many people from Mexico and from other countries there are. There's a ton. So it's been a great pleasure to see the growth of the Latin population overall at my company. And I'm hoping that other tech companies are exactly the same. But yes, I do whatever I can to make sure that in those moments where when I am the only one, that I am representing all of us as a community.
Yep. And I love how you focus on unity, right? And bringing everyone together. Because I feel like sometimes people think like it's an us against them, but in the end, like we all need each other, right? We're all in this together. And fun fact, Tanya, Chile was the first country I visited. I was like 6, so I hardly remember, but my parents took me there like 30 years ago, and now you know my age. But anyway, let's continue with the panel, dear Latina friends. Manuela Veloso, what do you think? Tell us about an important component in a team that's traditionally filled by white male talent.
So I think that the important aspect for me, which in addition to what Abby and Tanya already said, with which I agree a lot, is to be a vehicle of bringing, of alerting people for the existence of how do you say, of diversity outside of the team. So many times we are asked to either hire new people or bring a speaker or try to identify someone for a committee, all sorts of opportunities we have to include people in the tasks we perform, or to interview someone. And my role has always been about like finding women, finding Latinos, finding diverse people, because somehow there is always these excuse that people say, oh, there are no women that do this, or there are no people, there are no Latinos, there are always in this kind of identifying that there are no such people, that we don't exist as broadly as the others. And I prove them always wrong by identifying the people that can be invited, that can be in the committees, that can be considered for hiring. So that's, I think, a lot of my role in that in addition to what was said, in this role, in this environment that in which I am a woman in the middle of a lot of men, but it's to bring more women to the discussion, to bring more women. The second aspect that I think it's for me very important, again, as a woman in this environment of men, is to really call on women to talk more. The few women that are there, to give them roles of leadership, to try to actually give them visibility and have them like shine for what they've done. And I think that's very important. And the third aspect that I will say here for the group is that somehow we need people to apply more to these technology jobs. So in JP Morgan, I mean, in fact, for Latinos, like you were saying, Pedro, about Berkeley and Stanford, you know, we need to grow more, but sometimes it's not that people are not there. It's people think that their skills don't match the jobs that are being advertised. I want people to have take a deep breath, have a breath of courage, and really aim at something that sometimes seems bigger than what they are, but it's okay, because the point is like this, you know, I once was with someone that looks at the job description, and unless they meet all the requirements, they don't apply. And other counterparts, more confident, always believe that they are so good that even if they only meet one of the criteria, they can apply. So if we could like assume that when we at JP Morgan, or I'm sure at Google or at T-Mobile, set up some job announcement, we are not expecting people to meet all our criteria. So I think that people, Latinos and other people, tend to, I don't know, in technology, I'm just telling you, apply, you know, trust that you have the capabilities, and we'll advance more. Then, because for us it's hard to be like searching, but I believe that people need to have this bigger heart with respect to the jobs and apply. So this is my third call, so is to people in this audience to apply to our jobs in technology. Even if you don't meet all the criteria, it will be perfectly fine.
I love that, taking risks, you know. I remember in elementary school, there was a sign that said, you never know what you can do until you try. And my mom, her name is Julia, I have two older sisters. She'd always tell us, just like, dale, no? Como que sonríe, take the opportunity, go. And you know, my oldest sister, Diana, got a full ride at Oxford. Karina, my middle sister, went to Stanford, and she's a doctor, and I went to Berkeley. So my mom did something right, and I'm thankful for my mom and really todas las Latinas de acá, no? Well, let's go to the last question before I get too emotional and happy and joyful. Can and should a Latina be a leader in your space? Tanya.
Of course. I think you're talking to 3 Latinas leaders in our space, right? Technology, information technology. I think there should be absolutely more. I know of many more, but you know, there should be even more. And I think Manuela and you hit it in the head when you both said you have to take risks. If you don't take a risk, you know, we won't know, right? So all of us are here because at some point or another, I truly believe that we took a risk. But I want to also go back to something you said at the very beginning of the importance of sponsorship. I think none of us would have taken risk if we didn't have somebody behind us or beside us telling us it's okay. I'll be there with you all the way, right? Whether it was at our job, whether it was our mom. By the way, I had a similar upbringing to yours also. And I think, you know, whether it was our parents, whether it's a friend, whether it's somebody at work, whether it's somebody in the university, a professor in the university who's willing to vouch for you and call up another professor and say, hey, you should take this student because the student's really good, you know. Make sure you identify who they are. It could be one person, it could be 50 people, right? And make sure that you ask them for help. Because if you don't ask them for help, they might not, you know, they might not realize that you need it. And asking for help doesn't have to be, oh, help, I'm sinking, because that's not what I'm asking you to do. What I'm asking you to do is to go and tell them, what are your dreams? What do you want to do? That's asking for help, because it's conveying to them, where do you want to go? How far do you want to go? What do you want to do next? Or maybe in 5 years, whatever it is that's clear in your head. Communicate that, because these people who are there to support you, they're going to help you. They're going to help you do it. And if you truly believe it and they believe that you can do it, you'll get it done.
That's so true, Tanya. Asking for help and making like small and strategic asks and reading about your mentor and sponsor ahead of time, right? I remember when I would ask for like a VP or director or like C-suite, I would read about her, you know, PhD, the nonprofits, the boards where she's involved, what she does, her hobbies, her Twitter and everything. So then the sponsor's like, okay, like, you know, he or she, they did their homework, they know what they want. They're not asking for a 2-hour lunch, but a 15-minute coffee chat or Zoom or FaceTime or whatever. So cool. Abby, what do you think? Should a Latina be a leader in the tech space?
Por supuesto que sí. I think there's only one answer to that. And of course, the answer is yes. I think we need a lot more women, Latinas in technology. And I have to say, I agree with Tanya so much, because even in my own journey, I wish that I would have looked for mentors way earlier in my career, because the impact that had on me when I started to actually have mentors to coach and just really just ask me questions, and I could see that they saw my potential way more than I did on myself, and that made a huge difference because they challenged me to look for opportunities that I wasn't even thinking about. And so I really encourage everyone to consider the importance of asking for help, because as Tanya said, that can be life-changing. And so yes, go out there and ask questions and find the people. It may take a few interviews or a few coffee chats, but don't give up. You know, you're not going to find the person that you click with right away, but be persistent and just keep at it. And I found that more people than you know really want to help. And so don't be afraid to ask for their time. A lot of the times I think that holds us back, because you feel like, oh my gosh, that person is so busy, and you know, I don't want to take away from their schedule. But know that, you know, sometimes the most rewarding meetings or conversations that I have are when we're talking about mentorship and just having a conversation about how I can help someone. You know, that really makes my day, versus the other meetings that are more focused. So yeah, just keep that in mind, that people want to help you. So, you know, just give them that opportunity.
So true. So true. A lot of people, they love giving advice. And I agree with you, Abby. Those are the best meetings. The last thing I'll share is I also teach entrepreneurship at Tecnológico de Monterrey Tech. in Mexico. And it's always a joy seeing how students, especially Latinas and mujeres, right, when they get a scholarship or they do like a little startup or a company, I'm like, wow, like you're 17 and you're already doing this. So it's so inspiring. Last but not least, Manuela, please take us home.
Okay, well, most have been said, but I'll add one more thing that I've been here, which is the following. Don't forget that you should aim at being promoted, at increasing your career. So ask for help, but don't stand back in this type of leadership need. So what I'm trying to say, people tend to think again that, oh, you know, I can be better, I'm not as good as, and I think that with the help of the mentors that were mentioned before, asking for help, Tanya and Abby mentioned these, but also there is this self-confidence that people have to gather and find. And I think that, again, people have to be assertive about their own contributions. Just to give you an example, one Latino woman at JP Morgan once met with me. She's much more senior than me. And she was giving me an example that once she was, the promotion time came and she assumed her boss knew what she had done. But she stopped and thought, why don't I write down all the things I believe I've contributed and really make an effort to make sure that my boss knows about this. And it was a life-changing situation because this boss came to her and said, oh my God, I never thought you had done all these things. And so she was assuming that it was understood, but she made that effort and it was rewarded. And also by the reaction of the boss, who really appreciated that type of careful enumeration. So what I'm saying is that people should be in control of their contributions. And sometimes if they are not recognized, sometimes people are very busy, the bosses or people that, and there is nothing wrong to bring that up kindly and humbly, but still to remember, to remind people of the contributions that you have done. So we should not expect also our mentors, our bosses to know it all. And we should be basically being very generously and honestly reminding them of the contributions. Otherwise, you may disappear, because you don't brag as much. So, oh yeah, that's my last recommendation is brag, or find a one to kindly brag. It's needed.
That's so true. So true, Manuela. And I love your positivity. And I feel like many times in our countries, and I say Peru, but I'm sure in Chile and Mexico and Portugal, we always say we, right? Like we did this, we surpassed the OKR, we did the KPI, we launched the product or whatever. But sometimes, Manuela, as you're saying, as Latinas, we have to brag and let's say, I did this, right? Like yo lo hice. And so that's the last thing I'll share. Thank you so much for being here. And I encourage everyone here in the audience to connect on LinkedIn with Abigail, with Tanya, with Manuela. Don't be shy, reach out for help, a 15-minute Zoom or coffee chat. And I'm more than sure that these outstanding engineers and technologists will help and vouch for you. So thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you, Pedro.
Thank you, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias. Obrigado.